Yes, ladies and gentlemen. Gridiron 360. We're not gone. We're here, and we back. Bill, Dave,
what's happening?
Thank you for listening. Apologies for last week. As you all know, we were going to try to squeak in a few edited versions of the podcast while we took the kids down to the Disnash. If any of you has spent all day in Disney World, I don't think it would have sounded very good at the end of the day. We did one. We got a recap. We got a recap in, but our other recaps, our previews, our fantasy football fell by the wayside because the day ended and my legs fell off and I was just an absolute mess. How about you? You were not in great shape either.
No. A lot of numb feelings from the knees down, and then there was a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old.
Oh,
so
emotions. Like, why is it you got these kids in, like, the most magical place in the world? It's expensive as all get out, and not 5-10 minutes walking through the dang-gum gates, there's some sort of fussing. I just don't get it, man. My parents would have grabbed me by the elbow, said, "We out," and we're never coming back.
I hear you. Yeah, it was amazing. Actually, we didn't. I'm surprised you got within the gate. I was pre-gate.
Yeah. Well, that's just the age differences. But we digress. So we're jumping back in here, and we're gonna start today off with a little recap of college football week 5. A lot of things happening, and we're going to try to start to keep these things as the season has progressed to the more important games, the more important headlines, topics of the week, of the weekend. Also, touching on some notable games, which we're going to start off with here. Sound good?
Let's get it on.
All right. So notable games that we don't want to take a lot of time on. You might say, why this one? Delaware travels to Pittsburgh to take on the Panthers. Really, Pitt took down the bad guys, as we said, in University of Central Florida. No offense to Central Florida fans. Hey, I like being the villain. Don't be like that. We were in Disney World. My favorite characters are all the villains. But they took them down. Pitt takes them down, and then they got the Blue Hens come to town from Delaware, and they eke one out 17-14, and you just said it. I think it's really like, what is this Pitt team? Like, I don't know. Like, it might just be a mere case of playing to the level of the competition, I guess. Yeah, that's really all I can say about it. So, didn't look pretty across the board. I don't even want to go into deep stats on it. The folks over at Delaware are not a team to worry about, and I don't know.
For a minute there, I thought they were playing Michigan, but they would have been winning by a lot more if they were playing Michigan.
Yeah, this isn't Joe Flacco behind the helm at Delaware, which is probably the only time they were of recognition. But
hey, they had a quarterback there named Matt Nagy at one point. He was a quarterback from Delaware.
God, that's why we have you here, Dave, because we know tidbits of information others don't. Even though that is the coach of your NFL team, so I expect that. Other notable game, Utah versus Washington State. Tell me about it.
Whoa, well, we had Utah, who has been a little less than spectacular and obviously had a loss recently, but went out to Washington State, who was coming off a loss themselves to Cal. And we'll get into Cal a little bit later, but Washington State laid a big, giant egg in this game. So much so that Mike Leach, who is not shy around a microphone, really laid into his players in the media, called them fat, dumb, and entitled, said we're soft, we're reading our press clippings. So clearly they were, because they got smoked and looked really poor in the process. Again, I don't know you call it a hit for the Pac-12 because Utah is a ranked team. But again, these teams that were these were two teams a couple weeks ago that were still undefeated, and now that conference is starting to crumble, as I believe now they are, well, we'll get into it again with Cal, but they are now a conference without a undefeated team.
Yeah.
And we're only in week 4, so that was a tough loss.
Yep.
Then we moved on to Kentucky, going to South Carolina. Kentucky putting up a good fight against Florida. What'd you see in this game?
Yeah, I mean, look, they put up a fight as we had expected they might, but it's really a tale of two seasons, I think, for the Wildcats. Have that 10-win season last year, looking good. Got the Benny Snell, got the Josh Allen on the D, got the good defense. Terry Wilson at the helm at QB, and I really think that's the biggest thing for them. I mean, they lost Snell and they lost Allen. They have some good guys on D, and I think they have a decent enough coach, but they're really hurting without Terry Wilson. The Sawyer Smith kid, 11 for 32, only 90 yards, no TDs, a pick. Looks like they had some other kid come in, Lynn Bowden, 2 for 2 for 7 yards.
Where's Scalzo?
Yeah, where is Scalzo? I don't know. Maybe he's still recovering. For those of you who don't know, reference back a couple months, our
QB1.
Yeah, the football reality TV podcast. Anyways, that's where I think they're at. I think Kentucky's really suffering without Wilson. Even with him in there, not that they'd be much better. They're 2-3 now. It's not looking good. It's back to the Kentucky of old. And against the Gamecock team that, the Ryan Helinski kid went only 15 for 27 for $140. No TDs, no interceptions. Now, I will make note, they ran all over him.
Yep.
Our former running back from Clemson, Tavian Feaster, who hopped into the portal, transferred over there, went 15 for $107 and 2 TDs. And then they had Rico Daddle, number 5, go 15 for $102 in the TD. So they ran all over him. 24-7 Kentucky. Yeah.
So let's take a look at Duke versus Virginia Tech. What did you think of that game?
What did I think of that game? I like Quentin Harris, the quarterback for Duke. I think that the nation saw him first game of the year against Alabama, and they put up a little bit of a fight in the first half for Alabama just to put away. And unfortunate, and I think they have players on the team, but it's very similar in my mind to Daniel Jones last year. He really was the team. He carried the team, and Quentin Harris is doing the same. 20 for 27, $163, 2 TDs, no interceptions. They demolished Virginia Tech, who unfortunately, I think Fuente is going to lose his job. They look horrible. I mean, I have no. This is a team even when they may not have been the best in the conference or on their side of the conference, were still a formidable opponent, especially in Blacksburg.
Yep.
And Duke went in there and smacked them around 45-10. And with, Virginia, we'll talk about that as a notable game against Notre Dame taking a loss, even though it isn't in conference. There might be a little chink in the armor. Duke may be able to take that side of the conference still because they're 3-1. So, but yeah, I like Quentin Harris. I think again, what else do you expect from David Cutcliffe?
Well, what I thought was also pretty interesting, and again, I'm not surprised watching going back to that Alabama game because I saw a little bit of it, and certainly he's done it since then. Is that he also led the team in rushing, both in attempts and yards. Went 17 for 100.
Yep.
Scored another one on the ground.
Yes,
so
he did.
He was all over. He was very, very tough to contain. Again, you would expect, especially it's Bud Foster's last year, a little bit more out of this defense, and they just took it to him. I mean, they ran all over them. Another story of the running game. They went 234 yards on the ground. So this is a Virginia Tech team that's in a lot of trouble. Don't know how they're going to recover. Depends on. I agree with you. You can't. I just don't think they can fire him midseason, and the real problem would be because who you'd probably lean on is Bud Foster, and to do that to him in his last year,
no, he's not.
It's not a good look.
Nope.
So I think they're married to him.
Yeah, I don't think they'll do it midseason, but
it's ugly.
It's ugly. I mean, the only consolation is they had that McLeese kid go 17 for 102, no touchdowns, but 6 yards a clip. That's not bad, and maybe that's something the Dukies need to focus on is tightening up that run D as they head down we're about midway. So
yep.
All right. So talk to me a little bit about A&M and Arkansas. My man Chad Morris over at Arkansas.
Yeah, I mean, Arkansas is not coming in very heralded into the year. Had some not so spectacular performances early on, but this is a game that Arkansas really gave A&M a lot of trouble. And I think what I saw out of this was this was a chance, and I kind of mentioned this before. You got LSU and Alabama at the top of the SEC West, and I think they're clearly a class above. The next group to me was Auburn and A&M, and I think right now Auburn's moved closer to LSU and Alabama, and A&M is starting to slip to me. They have had some injuries, but inconsistency out of Mond. And Arkansas just really gave them all they could handle. And they understand. They got their quarterback. Starkel got knocked out in the first quarter. It was definitely first half. I think it was the first quarter. And Hicks came in.
And he can, I saw a little of that. I know Chad Morris's offense.
Yep.
And the reality is, man, the Hicks kid actually looked better and more comfortable at running that type of offense than Starkel.
He did. And by no means was he perfect in this game. I mean, he had some struggles. I give credit to Arkansas's defense. They held up well in this game. Really, they had the lead going down into the end. It took them kind of coming back and making a play to get it back. And then Arkansas had a chance again to move it back down the field and got themselves into some long plays. I think they overcame I think it was like a 2nd and 20 and got a first down on 4th down. But then the next series of downs, I think, is when they got knocked out. I had to listen to that one on the radio heading back, but and I saw some replays of it. But that's, to me, I guess my takeaway is that A&M's going to have some struggles. Now, they're a talented team, so they can recover to some degree.
I think they're idle this week, and then they've got Bama coming to town, if I'm not mistaken.
And that's not a good way to follow up a game like that.
But here's the problem. They're not running the ball right.
No.
Okay, they can't run the ball. And their offensive line, which is supposed to be, some seasoned guys, they've given up sacks left and right. So the formula, that it took when we played them in one, and then Auburn played them in one, and now they had a little bit of a duke out here with Arkansas. I mean, stop the run, which they're not great at, and put pressure on the quarterback, which the line hasn't been able to hold up. Here's one thing I do want to note. 2014, 2015, 2017, over the course of 3 out of those 4 year over that 4-year span, 3 games between these two teams went to overtime. So
it's been a competitive series.
I mean, there's a little rivalry here now because they play this in Cowboys at Jerry World.
Is that where that game was?
Yeah, they played it, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they play it at AT&T Stadium, whatever, in Arlington, Jerry World, and so there's a little rivalry here. So it's it's not like when Texas A&M has been good and Arkansas has been not good or subpar, that they haven't given them a game. So I guess history would have told you that this could happen.
Yeah, you bring up the offensive line, and I'll kind of hit on this real quick. Now, it's not the same coach, but as a Florida State fan, I have vivid memories of this, and it was always a sticking point for Florida State fans was he went with Trickett, and he held on to Trickett for a long time. He was a militant type of guy. He actually had a lot of recruits want to leave. We really struggled in our time there. And even though we won a national championship, that one year in 2013 was by far the best offensive line we had. We had bad offensive lines before that. We have really poor offensive lines as his tenure ended. We're still struggling with that. I'd be interested to see. It's kind of been a bugaboo for Fisher, and maybe that I don't know who he hired. I got to be honest, but if they're having struggles there, that just bears watching because Fisher's got a little bit of a history with that. So with underperforming offensive lines, and that you're not going to win in the SEC with that. That's for sure, because that is a conference. If you're being fair and honest, that's won at the line of scrimmage.
Right.
So interesting. All right, so let's move on to another undefeated team going. The Kansas State Wildcats going to Oklahoma State. This is another team that we weren't really sure about. We've talked about, they had won some games, won convincingly. Competition level wasn't super high in Kansas State, but go to Oklahoma State, who, if anything, they're going to throw up some points with the helmet there and with the mullet, and Kansas State couldn't get it done.
Yeah, you're looking at Oklahoma State, was 21, wins the game, 26-13. Both K-State's 3-1, Oklahoma State's 4-1. The Skylar Thompson kid for K-State didn't really do anything. He went 11-23 for $118, no TDs, no picks. Running game wasn't really doing anything. They maybe had, 40. They maybe had a butt hair over 100 yards in total on the ground. One TD overall by number 34, James Gilbert. He was their lead back, 12 carries for 44 yards, so that's not great. But let's talk about Oklahoma State, and we talked about him before the Texas game, and he was hemmed up a little bit in the Texas game, but boy, did Chuba Hubbard go bonkers. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen a stat line in college like this, and I've seen some crazy stat lines. It is college. The dude went 25 carries for 296 yards. He had one TD, but 296. I mean, like, how the wheels didn't fall off, just from exhaustion is beyond me.
Well, the key is carry it only 25 times and go for 12 yards a clip like
wow. Now, there were a quarterback who has been pretty good, typically Mason Rudolph, you have good quarterbacks come out. The mullet does a good job with his quarterbacks. He didn't have a phenomenal day. He went 16
picks,
16-25, $153, one TD, two picks, but you're never going to win if one running back, let alone Sanders carried the ball 14 times for 52 yards. They had another back go for 25 yards on 4 carries. I mean, if you let someone put 300 yards on the ground on you, that's a tough day for you to come back because they're controlling the clock. I don't care if there were only 25 carries and if there were a lot of more long ones. I mean, they controlled the game. I mean, that'll tell you all you need to know. That guy. Wow, he's something, this Chuba Hubbard. And if he is not in the Heisman conversation, man, something's wrong. I mean, I know it's got to be a team usually that's in the hunt. They're 4-1 right now. Now, granted, they lost to Texas, but hell, they have their rivalry with Oklahoma. They'll get their shot at them. What if they were to win that? They may get their path is still in front of them. So, we say it all the time in college. Good coaching, and Mr. Mullet there is a good coach. It's all there is to it. Yeah. Last notable game we want to touch on: Rutgers goes to the Big House, takes on Michigan.
This is just really more than anything. It's just a recovery game for Michigan. Personally, still not a believer in this team. Rutgers is a god-awful team and has been for multiple years now.
And headline just in the past couple days, Rutgers lets Ash, their coach, go.
Yeah, I believe he was an Ohio State guy, if I remember correctly. I think he was their D coordinator at Ohio State.
Well, I mean, look, we've talked about it. Like, I understand, but we said nothing good ever comes in an earlier podcast of letting a coach go mid-season, really. And, a lot of, I mean, you understand there's, these people do have families and such. It's funny. I was listening to it this morning when we were listening to it on ESPNU, and they even said that, like, these people have families too. And not that they're going to be in the poorhouse by any means. But, then where does Rutgers go from here? There's speculation maybe who's the man for the job. It's a tough job. Is it a tough job or just a bad job? And people say maybe it's just a bad job, but there are recruits in New Jersey. Schiano was able to make it work a little bit. Maybe they're going to look at him. I don't know. You go into it. It was a demolishing of epic proportions.
Yeah, I mean, here's kind of the thing. Touching on the coaching changes, here's to me, there's probably really only two reasons you make a coaching change mid-season. And college football is probably the least likely candidate for something like this. Number one is you have a seriously bad attitude problem with your coaches, which, again, I don't know enough about the situation there at Rutgers. I will admit, I just, in the last year and a half, moved from New Brunswick, New Jersey, the home of Rutgers, was living there for about 6 years. So, it's a limited university, even though many people may know this, but there might be a lot that don't. The first college football game ever played was Rutgers versus Princeton. The score was 6-3. So a little bit of trivia there, a little Americana trivia. First college football game.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, wouldn't have thought to put Rutgers in that mix, but it makes sense.
New Brunswick time.
Yeah,
That's what you get for living in New Brunswick for a little while.
But just really out of this game, besides changing a coach for attitude issues, is the other one would be that you've got a guy in your system right now that needs to take over that you believe in for the future. I don't know that Rutgers really had either one of those scenarios. So in this instance, not just for the coach and the family, who's probably the most taken care of in the situation, is what does it tell your team? And that's the hard part.
Well,
I mean,
it tells them that we're done. I mean, not that they had anything going for them, but it tells them that you're
throwing
not
in
just
the
your
towel to
team,
your
but
team.
what about like the seniors, dude?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah,
what about the seniors?
Forget what it does to your recruiting.
I mean, what about the guys that might have NFL potential on that team? Because there's going to be, one or two. Everybody has them.
Secondary 4 years ago was all Rutgers.
Yeah, so I mean, that doesn't really help them in their draft stock. So that it hurts, man.
I mean, Michigan, I will say this. Michigan, you did see a statistical bounce back in a performance from Shea Patterson. He is hurt. Again, I'm not a believer in this team. I think they've been overrated. Patterson, clearly has not really fit the bill of that fifth-year transfer that's going to be the savior. And, again, his stat line was 17 of 23 for 276, so relatively efficient, but only a touchdown and interception. Michigan really got this done on the ground. Now, that being said, Patterson had 4 one-yard rushes. 3 of those were touchdowns. So, got the ball in the goal line in a running situation.
Ducked under center and pushed it through.
They had several people running. So, again, it remains to be seen. You got to pay attention to Michigan only because they're going to play against 3 undefeated and playoff potential teams, so they have at least an opportunity to play spoiler. If they could win out, which I do not see that happening, they would have a legitimate shot still at the title, or playing for the title. So those are kind of the recaps of the notable games, and now we kind of want to get into some of the more headline games that either were involved an impact or is an impact situation or involved a team that had a legitimate shot at the playoffs. So why don't you go ahead and lead us off?
All right, so we'll start with my Clemson Tigers. Road game, North Carolina, Tar Heels. Final score, 21-20, Clemson. We go to 5-0. We drop in the rankings here from 1 to 2. The Heels are now 2-3. Trevor goes 18 for 30 for 206 and a touchdown. He also ran the ball 11 times for 45 yards and a touchdown. ETN goes 14 carries for 67 yards and a touchdown. T. Higgins had a great day. 6 receptions, $129 and TD. North Carolina side, Sam Howell, 15 to 27 for $144, 2 TDs. Really, what I want to kind of highlight is there are 2 running backs, number 8, Michael Carter, 16 carries for 99 yards. And their other back, number 25, Javonte Williams, 10 carries for 49 yards and TD. And we said it last week because we didn't want to hang up on the UNC Charlotte-Clemson game, but my biggest concern was the rush D. And it reared its ugly head again. It is different than it was in years past. I know we've got the best D coordinator in college football, and we've got horses, but we've manipulated the defense to adjust to not having those 4 big boys on the defensive line that are now in the NFL. And as a result, people have gashed us. I mean, people are able to, the 4th and 1 where I was uber confident that, go ahead, test us the way it was last year. Not so much. The first down, picking up 4, 5, 6 yards a clip, not so much, okay? The problem I have right now, and we do have players all over the map. I said Xavier Thomas, number 3, our D end. He's a stud, but he hasn't really shown me what I kind of expected. He is still young. Isaiah Simmons, number 11, is all world. He is moving himself up every week, another notch in the NFL draft. But every big play that the defense makes, or when we need a big play made, if it's made, it's Isaiah Simmons. Love the guy. Want him to keep doing what he's doing. But we need more people to step up.
Yeah, you need more from the front.
We definitely need more from
You don't
the
want
front.
guys getting second level. That's not where you want. You want a playmaker there that can get behind the line of scrimmage, not making the plays beyond the line of scrimmage.
Now, keep in mind, we have like 80 freshmen and sophomores on the roster, so we are still very young. And I know Coach is going to get us right. And, Trevor said it, and Coach said it at the end of the game. Give all the credit to North Carolina. I said it to a buddy that texted me at the end of the game. And I said, listen, man, we are everybody's Super Bowl. That's not arrogance. That's what it is. I mean, it would be the same thing if North Carolina was number 1 and we weren't ranked and they were coming in Death Valley. We're going to get up.
Yeah.
So we are everybody's Super Bowl. And yes, a win in college football is tough every week. So you want to appreciate the wins. And this is the time of year, about the same time, the past 3 years. Last year, we managed to eke it out against Syracuse with Trevor going down after he was named the starter for the first time. Year before that, against Pitt, we lose. Year before that, against Syracuse, we lose. And it's the same week. It was like the 5th week. It's right around the same time. And then we go into a bye and we get things right. And I have all the confidence in the world in the coaching staff to get things right. We talked about it earlier today. This is going to be a rough week for the Tigers at practice. They are going to beat them to the ground. But you look at Alabama, whose run game is not right, whose defense, especially in the linebacking core, it has some chinks in the armor. But the first week it's Jerry Jeudy. The next week it's Ruggs. The next week it's Waddle. This week it was the Smith kid. Yeah. So we have these same weapons, as good if not better. But it's just one weapon every week. Don't get it twisted. They're picking and choosing. They're like, this week we're going to go. They made a joke about it with the rock, paper, scissors thing before. They're like, this week it's going to be this guy. It wasn't that the other guys were all covered up all the time. They were probably heavily covered, and this guy was probably the most open. But if he wanted to, the other guys could have definitely gotten involved. My point is, we have that talent, and maybe Trevor's going through a little sophomore slump. I still believe in him. He's got the talent. I don't know what's going on. And I know you want to appreciate a win, but, I also said you've got to handle your opponents. I went into that game. The fourth or the 2-point conversion call was the right call. Okay? You had us on the ropes. We had maybe a minute and change to come down if they had scored it to kick a field goal. The way things were going, and I know how potent we are. I don't know if we were going to be able to make that happen. It was tough sledding most of the day. Again, just like they said, hats off to Mac Brown. We were outcoached and we were outplayed. McElroy said it throughout the entire game cast. They're not deep on the defensive side of the ball at North Carolina, and sooner or later, that Clemson offense is going to wear them down. Well, we didn't, and we did put it to them. They were out there a lot, and they remained high energy the whole game. The main players on their defensive side of the ball came to play the whole game. The Surratt kid looked as good as Isaiah did. Let's just say that. And I said at the beginning of this, he is all world. So we need to get it right. And this is the right time for a bye. We got you guys coming to town in 2 weeks, Florida State, that is. We need to get it right because though Ole Miss put, 30 or something like that on Alabama, and, LSU had Vandy put like 30-something on them. Ohio State and Oklahoma are demolishing people offensively and defensively. We need to handle our business a little better than this. And again, I have the ultimate faith in the coaching staff. I am, the biggest Clemson fan out there. But it's we need to get it right. We need to get it right because we, one loss in the ACC the way it's looking right now. Now that Notre Dame now that Notre Dame took Virginia down for a loss, we're the only undefeated ACC team. The ACC has been a dumpster fire this year. One loss, yes, we could. I know we have the we have the accolades and the history of the past few years, but if we don't get it right and we take a loss, that could be it for us this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to take it a little bit from the UNC side, and you and I talked about this. I go back to Florida State, back when we were good. But I will say, I talked to you a little bit about 99. Florida State, 99, first team ever to go AP poll wire to wire and win the whole thing. And we had a game where we played in Georgia Tech. I was at the game. I believe the final score was 17-14. It was a close game. Was it Hamilton? Is it Hamilton?
Joe Hamilton?
Joe Hamilton, I think.
What year was that?
99.
Sounds about right.
What went off. And so let me just say this. One, I think things are looking up at North Carolina big time. This Sam Howell kid is a good player. He's a gamer. The guy, his stat line was
very comfortable considering.
Yeah. I mean, this is a true freshman coming into a situation with a team that's limited on weapons. But there are games where you have teams that just come ready to play. And the thing is, we talked about early in the season what will be the trip-up game for Clemson potentially. Obviously, the A&M game was the highly ranked game. But then after that, going and playing Syracuse. Well, the expectation was Syracuse was going to be a lot better. The whole thing about a trip-up game is they're supposed to be games you don't know. And this is a game where you don't know. And everything was falling right for North Carolina. And credit to them. They made it happen. Like you said, they came with energy. I thought Howell played well in the system. He was under pressure. He took 3 sacks, but the kid went 15-27 for 144 yards and 2 touchdowns. They ran the ball effectively, but the thing is, they got plays every time they needed them, with the exception of the last play, which is what cost them the game. But I'm okay with the call. I think the call was a good call. You can argue it that it didn't work, but I think it was the right play at the right time, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, the longer the game goes on, obviously we're going to be the one favored to take it. So you gotta, you try to, take out, it's David and Goliath. Yep. David tried to take out Goliath right there, and that I don't argue that. I thought Howell did look comfortable. He looked poised. He didn't look like he got rattled. I will say, I've watched our team for a while. I've spoken very highly about how Venables. The schemes we run, disguising things, moving a lot. And almost, Dabo said at the end of the game, we were out coached. I don't think that the coaches were ready the way they usually are. It's almost like, hey, we got through the 2 games that were supposed to be the thorn in our side, and, maybe we'll take a little breather. I think they're getting their butts chewed and worked this week, because it didn't look like we were disguising as much as we usually do. It didn't look like Coach made adjustments at half like he usually does. He's phenomenal at. And on the other side of the ball, I told you, like 2 weeks ago against Syracuse, it was like deep shot after deep shot. And I'm like, what are we doing? Where's the intermediate game? But then this game, we rarely took the deep shots when we really needed an explosive play to kind of swing momentum, because even though we were down, and then we caught up, and then we had the lead, and we kind of were nobody was worried, there were plays where we could have that we maybe, you might say, okay, we've got momentum back, but it really never felt like momentum.
Yeah, and it's hard. You brought up though the young talent. I think this is kind of an important topic, because it is one. It gives me a higher level of respect for a team like Alabama. And certainly Clemson's done it, but 2 things, Florida State in 2013 went out and we annihilated everybody until the title game. And the title game was close. We had to come back and win it in the last drive, but we took care of business. And I would tell you, in 2014, we were more talented, but kind of something you brought up is that idea of some of the guys that you've lost, losing leadership. Sometimes you can be more talented and have less leadership. And so you've got, and leadership is learned, and it's something that's acquired throughout the season. So this is kind of, to me, this is the signature moment for Clemson season. You can go the route of, hey man, it was 99 with Florida State. Again, I got to use them because they're my best frame of reference, but 99 Florida State team that went 17, wins 17-14 and gets out of it and goes, you know what, man, we can't look past anybody or we're going to trip. Or you can look at it like the 2014 Seminole team, which was after the championship, which again, mind you, Clemson's coming off a title, and a title that they won very handily. And you go and you say, everybody says, we don't read our press clippings and this and that. Listen, that's all garbage. Every team reads them. Okay. It's what they do with them mentally and how they compartmentalize them that makes them strong or causes challenges for them. And very few teams overcome that challenge. I think Clemson has the talent to do it. Again, I think they ran into a team that had everything fall the right way, and Clemson still won. And that there's something to be said for them. This whole dropping them in the polls, I get it. People don't like the way they're winning, but they're winning. Same way nobody liked the way Florida State won in 2014 because we won a lot of games like this. And yet we belonged in that playoff. But then the truth came to be told because we went and played Oregon and we got smoked. This is the type of game where Clemson can make a difference in their season, and it bears to be seen. I agree with you. They can pound on these guys for 1 week because they, like Florida State, have the week off. Clemson is ultra talented, and the reality is they can turn it on. I think in this game, you said there were no adjustments. My thing would be, I would tell you, and I think Dabo realized it at the end of the game with his comments, was I believed he didn't feel like he needed to adjust because he was just waiting for his team to turn it on, and you never really turned it on as much as he was expecting to.
Yeah.
And so, again, now you realize, okay, listen, we escaped, and we can move forward. We did no damage to ourselves. Now we have a chance to fix it. So it'll be interesting. I wish this wouldn't have happened right before he played us.
I hear
but this is a championship caliber team.
I know, but
and
if
everybody
look, the leading rusher in the ACC right now is who?
Well, it was Cam Akers, but I don't think it still is.
Well,
he's close, but I don't know.
That's where I'm going.
Yeah.
And he's coming to town, and the thing I'm concerned about is LaRushty. Now, we will adjust to Cam Akers specifically because we know he is the guy, but it's just it is a bad time, maybe you say, for us to have this happen, but at the same token, for you guys, there's some game tape now. There's a little game tape on how you may be able to throw a little wrench in the works. So we'll move past it. Again, we are idle this week, as is Florida State, as is UGA and LSU from this past week. They were on a bye, so nothing to talk about them. How about Ole Miss going to the Loose? Taking on the Road Tide.
Yeah, I mean, let's just say this. I don't think Alabama's rushing attack is where it's normally been, but we just have to swallow this as an evolution of a team, that their passing attack is unbelievable right now. Their defense, still gave up 31 points in this game, so a little bit of a potential concern to watch for. I kind of put this, though, in line with a little bit of like the LSU Vanderbilt game last week where, Vandy put up like 33, I think. I'm not overly concerned. This is a team that is, Tua's chucking the ball everywhere. Very, very reminiscent of
last year.
Yeah,
dude. He went 26 of 36, 418 and 6 TDs. They were talking about it on the thing there. Were you listening when Blackledge was on there? And they're like, this RPO system. Oh no, you weren't. The RPO system. He's like, don't you wish you played? Because he played at Pitt. I think he was a tight end at Pitt. Blackledge are like, don't you wish you had the RPO system when you played? He's like, man, peoples are just wide open on these things, He's like, I love that, and you saw that. Friggin' Devonta Smith, 11 receptions for 274. Man, 25 yards a clip and 5 TDs.
They've never.
What is going on?
Well, they've never had a receiving core that's at this level from a depth perspective. Usually they've had a Julio Jones, they've had a Ridley. They've always had, they had Mari Cooper, so they've always kind of had those guys that were like, okay, our other receivers are good and can create mismatches, but these guys are our go-to guys. Let's be.
Now
I found it amusing that the two guys that play rock, paper, scissors, and the third guy scores the touchdown on the play. Like that's just something you haven't seen out of Alabama. And again, I give Saban credit for this. He's a lot like Belichick in the it's my way kind of to do this. And he's had a very specific
worked with him in Cleveland.
And he's had very specific strategies on how to win. And Alabama's going away from that strategy. and you can't knock the results. I mean, the results are there. Now, granted, I
look,
want to see them play the Auburns and the LSUs,
Yep.
but in
Najee
fairness to
Harris,
them, Clemson doesn't have that.
Look, Najee Harris had a modest day in terms of he had 71 yards on 9 carries, 8 yards a clip. But what that tells me is, I mean, he had 9 carries. Now, there were a few other guys had some carries. Robinson had 10 carries, but he's a receiver, I'm pretty sure. So probably it was like some end arounds. The reality is I mean, they threw the ball 36 times, right? 37 if you count them when Mac Jones came in for one pass that
and
wasn't
got the
complete.
poop rating according to Bleacher Report.
Oh yeah, you got the little poop emoji,
poop.
right? So we got here 10, 19, 29. So they ran the ball 29 times. 4 of those was Tua, so it was probably a scramble. So then you're down to 20. I mean, they're obviously just leaning all over the pass and just going away from the run. Maybe they realize it's not what needs to be. Maybe it's the offensive line not doing the job.
I don't think it's
Maybe they're
that.
just playing to their strengths.
I think that's it. I think they are throwing the ball because they can. I don't think they're throwing the ball because they can't run it. Now, I don't think their running game is like the strong tradition they've had. So like that will be interesting as they play some of these tougher teams, but they definitely have a passing attack. And again, I think you use what you've got. It's too, it is a good example. And maybe if you want to use this as a little bit of a segue, is going into, well, I guess I'll wait on this because I wanted to talk a little bit about Oklahoma, but we'll go to Mississippi State.
Yeah, I just
Auburn.
changed it up on Dave for those of you that
on
don't
the
know.
fly. But
on the fly,
I
but
adapt.
you know why? You know why I'm
Yep.
going this route because I want to stay in the conference because you said it. There are some teams down the pike in the SEC West that this throwing, and I still do believe that. Look, Tua can be had, man. I mean, that's where they have all those weapons at wide receiver. If you cut off the head, then the rest of it's going to fall apart.
Well, it's like anything else. If you attack people's weaknesses, you expose them, and that's just so.
And I think Tua can be had still. I really do. I mean, I saw it firsthand in the national championship, sitting with an Alabama fan who I don't know if I'll believe him completely in him saying that Tua's soft, but I see where he was coming from. He had, factuals to back it up.
Yeah.
So, when he gets under duress, yes, he's fast and he can escape, but if he escapes and there's somebody waiting there for if you set edges, if you box him up a little bit, he starts to get a little twinkle toes. His throwing accuracy then gets a little nutty. His decision making gets a little nutty, and you have a chance maybe to get at him. And so let's dive into this next game that I changed on the fly, and that was Mississippi State going to Auburn. Again, I wanted to stay in the conference so that after talking a little bit about this game, we can talk about the Iron Bowl pretty much is really kind of where I'm headed. So, look, Mississippi State, I don't know who they are, really. I mean, ever since Mullen left, he left some good pieces there for the coach that, that came in. What's the guy's name? I can't even remember off the top of my head.
I'm blanking.
Okay.
We
Nonetheless,
move on.
there was talk based on, defensively, them being able to continue being a strong foe in the SEC West. And, last year I didn't see it. They started to fall down to the bottom. I think they were ended up one above. Well, maybe it was Arkansas, Ole Miss, then them from bottom up. But they weren't great. Okay, coming off a year where they were, they were.
I mean, Malzahn's seat was supposedly pretty warm. So, Auburn, you're talking about, correct?
No, I'm talking about Mississippi State.
Mississippi
State. Yeah, I don't know who they are. So I guess everybody, you think it's a conference game. You think to yourself, well, Mississippi State, I guess a lot of people in their head might have, hearkened back to a couple of years ago when, they were like a year or so removed from Dak, but they still had a good defense. They still had some players on the offensive side of the ball. Their quarterback was but again, it was all at the defense. And maybe people are still kind of feeling like that's there. I don't see it. Auburn put 56 on him with a true freshman quarterback, and let me not say that as playing it down. This kid is playing great, man. He really is. It's a matter of being, again, just like the Howell kid. It's just he just looks like poised. Like he looks like he's, he got, that first big game under his belt. Now it's like, he's back in high school, running around playing ball.
Well, and he's not. Here's his thing: is he is a pass first guy. At least that's my perception of him. But he is not afraid to take it and run. And
he carries out a good read option fake, man. And he's a little guy, so for those, if they can't see them and all they see is him kind of feeding in there, and he holds it long enough.
Yep, get low and just kind of do it. Yeah, I mean, listen, I said it before when we were talking about, the Texas A&M game. I think Arkansas has elevated closer in my mind. I wasn't sold on them.
Arkansas?
Auburn, excuse me.
Whoa. That's a 180.
Well, I wasn't sold on Auburn after the Oregon game yet. It felt a little bit more like Oregon changed their scheme and kind of got away from the things that were helping them. But the more I watch this Auburn team, I mean, they're dangerous. And you mentioned the Iron Bowl as an example. I still look back at when Florida State played for the title game. Auburn, it was a little bit of luck in that game, with the field goal and everything when they ran it back. But Auburn gave Alabama, and Alabama was expected to roll through that game and play Florida State, and Auburn took them, and that this is a team that is more than dangerous right now. It's going to further strengthen the SEC argument, which I think there is one. I think it is unfortunate that, to me, the three best teams are on the West. Georgia is not really shown me enough yet. Not yet, at least.
I still think they have it in them, but not yet.
Certainly have the talent.
Yeah.
But, this is a game that, I look at the kid. He's 16-21, so it's not like he had to chuck the ball a lot, but went for 335 yards, led the team in rushing at 56 yards with a score. So, I mean, he's
getting the ball into playmakers' hands.
Yeah.
Whitlow had 3 TDs. He was 10 for 55. Cam Martin was 8 for 31 in a TD. Anthony Schwartz, 3 for 25 in a TD. And that's all on the ground, okay? Yep. Then you got Seth Williams going 8 for 161. That kid looks good, by the way. Seth Williams, the receiver, number 18. I for several weeks now, that guy's... He's stud. He had 2 TDs. He's getting the ball in the playmakers' hands. And here's the thing. All the talk, and we talked about it with the Auburn-Oregon matchup at the beginning of the year. It was the action in that game to look for was in the trenches with the veteran offensive line in Oregon and this supposedly vaunted D-line at Auburn, okay? Yeah. Which, at the first half of the game, it was definitely Oregon's offensive line. You didn't see Auburn do much on the defense. And it was like, since they came out from halftime in the Oregon game,
they put a new level.
And it hasn't stopped.
Nope. And
here's the thing, bro. They've got some mad talent on the defensive line and in their front seven. And they have and all it takes is like, on top of really good talent, having a couple of superstars like Derek Brown, okay? Like, that guy's incredible. Owen Papo, the outside linebacker, number 10, is a stud. Okay, that's a 5-star talent. This is it, and offensively, they're doing some good things. Auburn recruits well always, no matter what. So they have talent. Like this kid, Seth Williams, maybe a lot of people didn't know him, before this season or something. It's just like anything with us. Who knew Justin Ross until last year? This guy is 6'3", 225. He's a stud. And they've got multiple guys at the skill level on their team like that. Dude, it looks like us last year. That's where I'm going.
Yep.
It looks like Clemson, like our defensive, and that, when we took on Alabama, that was just why I wanted to go into this game. That's a defensive line that they can cut off the head. And if they're not running the ball, very well, and they've got a great run D, and it's all on two, and they cut off the head, then there's nothing. And that is a problem. That game, I think, is in Auburn this year, if I'm not mistaken. We need to jump forward to check her out. But let me tell you something, man. If you're going to nitpick, it is at Auburn on the 30th of November. If you're going to nitpick, I'd say I think Whitlow has had some fumbles, the running back this year. Maybe tighten that up. Other than that, I don't know what you can really say because Nix is young. He's just going to get better. I mean, this is a team that. It's unbelievable. A couple weeks ago, we talked about LSU after the Texas game. Like, it's it. Now I'm thinking, well, LSU let Vandy put 33 on them, and Alabama let, Ole Miss put 31, and they've looked, susceptible in certain areas on their defense. Man, they could run into both those teams could run into a buzzsaw.
Yeah,
and so who else is there? I mean, A&M is not what the problem is. Auburn also has to play Georgia this year. Well, they do every year, right? So, and I think Auburn plays Florida this week. Mm-hmm. So they have the two toughest teams on the other side of the conference. Meanwhile, Alabama gets their annual rivalry with the Vols on the other side of the conference. I mean, they're gonna. Let me tell you something. They could easily jump all of us, even if we're all undefeated, to number one, based on what they're doing.
Well, the thing about the SEC West is you got three of probably the top three of the 8 legitimate contenders. Maybe not quite 8. I got to do the count real quick. But you got 3 of the top 6 to 8 teams that are all going to have to play each other. I think this is the thing, and you kind of bring it up to and I've said this before, and it's about like the Giants when they would beat Aaron Rodgers and beat Brett Favre. It's how you beat Tom Brady. If you can rush and get to the quarterback with 4 guys, and you can play 7 guys back, and more importantly, play press coverage, you take talent away from the receivers. Mm-hmm. And those teams need to be able to run the ball. And as we've kind of discussed, Alabama's running game is not looking like what it has looked like in the past. And the question becomes, I think from an Alabama fan, they'll say we don't have to. From the other, I think there's more of a debate from the rest of college football as to whether it's really just the passing game is so good that that's what they're relying on versus maybe their running game isn't as strong and they have to. Again, we're talking about the best of the best here. So, yeah, I mean, Auburn has the model for which to beat any team that's passing prolific.
That's right.
That model, where I would say that model doesn't match as well, is almost like in Oklahoma and Ohio State, with a quarterback that can take off and run and beat you with the pass. They can adjust their game only because when you rush 4, you can a lot of times lose gap control, in which case then you get quarterbacks that can just take off and get first downs. That's not, to your point, what Tua has really become. So you can rattle them if you do that.
And look, I mean, the next kid, they draw up run plays for him. So if they need to practice against something, they've got it right there.
Yep.
Here's the thing with Alabama. A lot, I know all these receivers are Tua's numbers are out of control. All these receivers. I wish we could have, look, I wish we could have a stat of his receiving yards without the yak, right? Because a lot of them are short crossing, quick slant routes that they're just, crisscrossing defenders, and then they're so fast. They're just gone.
They run away from people.
Yeah. I mean, the way you beat that is you throw some disguises, man. You bring some of those linebackers up for like a double A gap blitz and have one of them come, one of them drop back to the middle to, interrupt it. Bring a safety down as well for help. I mean, that can be beat. Like when you mix it up constantly, which they can too, but when you mix it up constantly, which, I have to say, Clemson, like I said, a couple weeks ago was all downfield balls, and then all of a sudden it's all intermediate games. So once we get it all clicking on in all cylinders, then that's trouble. Yep. And obviously Alabama with a Judy can do the downfield game and stuff, but they have had a ton of yards after the catch, their wide receivers this year. Credit to Tua and their offensive coordinator for putting the ball in the playmaker's hands there. But it can be beat, and Man, I got to tell you, every week it's somebody different in the SEC West for me because I think Auburn this week looks to be the best team in the country.
Yep. The great part is we get to see them all play before it's all said and done.
That's right. All right, let's hit the you want to just shift down from where that? Okay, we go the Ohio State ESPN game day down in Nebraska, in Lincoln. The Big Red, the Huskers, welcoming in Ohio State, looking for Scott Frost, looking for something from his team. I got to be honest. We have a friend who's a big Ohio State fan, Jaquan Jenkins. Shout out, sir.
Say hi to him at if you're ever up in Gwinnett to see the Stripers play.
He is their play-by-play guy. He is replay guy. Sorry, color commentating, whatever. He's
there.
He's a man of many talents.
He's also a fantastic coordinating dresser.
Yes, he is, especially with his teams.
Yes.
So he's a huge Ohio State fan, and so the Clemson game ended. And the guy that texted me, like, whew, that was a close one. I texted him back, we're everyone's Super Bowl, dude. Everyone's Super Bowl. And that chain also, Jaquan was on, and Jaquan chimed in. He's like, yeah. He's like, well, I'm a little worried that we're about to walk into a little bit of a buzzsaw, like, a little bit of a tough time like you guys. And I told him, I said, look, I've been, and I'm not the biggest Justin Fields fan. If anything, I've given him more heck than anybody out there. But dude looks good. Yep. He looks good. He really does. And I still think, coming out, I would take Trevor out of high school over him. But he looks good, man. I mean, they are just absolutely throttling people. Now, Nebraska was able to muster a little 7 points on them. But, man, I mean, they've got that guy on defense. What's his name? Okuda, I think, is a corner. He could be the best corner in the country. And we're talking with, a Delpit, over at LSU. I mean, that Okuda guy, Jeremy Okuda or whatever, awesome. They got Dobbins in the backfield. Even when he doesn't look like he's having a great day, he ends up having a great day. They've got receivers all over the map. That Olave kid is something else. I mean, and then Fields, man. I mean, and when he's taking off, he's making good decisions. Yep. He's not holding on to the ball long. He's, looking for the open guy, getting at least a couple reads in. He lets it rip or he tucks it and goes. And when he's tucking it and go, it's the right decision because there's a wide open lane you could drive a Mack truck through, and he is gone. And he's a big kid, man. So even if somebody, a little, corner comes over to try to get him, with a full head of steam, they're not wanting a piece of that, let me tell you. So he looks good. They absolutely demolished Nebraska. I feel bad. I know the Nebraska fans came out and, in full effect, hoping that they would see a better effort. And right from the get-go, it was a throttling. I mean, the Martinez kid he tried, but he wasn't getting done. 8 for 17.
He filled the bed with a bunch of
47 yards, no TDs, 3 picks. We know him as a runner. He did take off for 15 carries, 81 yards, no TDs. And let me tell you, those 15 carries a lot of times were just, he was under duress just going. He was picking up a few yards here and there. Yeah, dude. On the other hand, Fields, 15 of 21, very efficient, 212 yards, 3 TDs. Goes 12 for 72 for another TD. Again, Dobbins, I don't see the first half stats. Looked like he started off slow. Ends up 24 carries for $177. He didn't need to score with that. They'll bring in the other guy to score the 2 TDs. Ohio State, and though they have had some points put on them, so their defense, this Grinch guy, I think he's done a better job, but I think that it's not completely, without some chinks in the armor. But man, look, I mean, I'm a Clemson guy. I'm looking at, there's 4 slots, man. There's 4. This is why we cannot lose because
well, here's the good part: is Ohio State has to play two of the prime contenders out of the Big Ten in Penn State and Wisconsin. What I think we really need to see is I'm not anti Fields, but what I do want to see is him have to play a game where the game's on his shoulders. He hasn't had to do that as of yet. Ohio State looks the part. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to be hypercritical of the little things. They will matter in all these bigger games, but I think that's the last kind of badge he needs to earn is having a game that's on his shoulders and then taking home the win. So he'll get that chance at the end of this month. Their first big contest will be against Wisconsin, and that'll be, I think, on the 26th. So, it's one of those games where we just got to see how it plays out. But you can't deny what they've been doing on the field. I mean, offensively, they've pretty much had their way with just about everybody. So you're really kind of nitpicking at this point. So that's a good team. So we're going to move on to the next game, which was another team vying for a playoff spot, which is Texas Tech was going down to Oklahoma. And I kind of want to touch back. We were talking about the Alabama game and talking a little bit about Tua and talking about kind of the right offense for the right player. You've got a Jalen Hurts who's kind of a cast off from Alabama, lost the job to Tua, and he's done nothing but go to Oklahoma and look all world. And I think it's just the right fit, the right type of offense for him, an ability to use his wheels more, which helps open up his passing game. He's not probably going to be the tight window guy, that's just going to put it on a dart and put it in there. But at the same time, I mean, this is a guy that basically, for all purposes, gave Alabama a shot at the playoffs last year by coming in and winning that title game. That would have been a tough loss for them, and he played out of his mind. And it's just an offense that's not – last year's Alabama offense was not suited for him. And I think this year's Alabama offense is better suited for Tua's skill set. And this Oklahoma offense is better suited for Jalen Hurts. And right now, you got some serious Heisman talk here. You got him. You're going to have Tua in the mix. You're going to have Fields. You got Wisconsin. You got Taylor.
Jonathan Taylor. So, you got Chuba Hubbard. You've got to talk about that guy.
Yep.
The talk about Jerry Jeudy
Even
is
Dobbins.
valid. Yeah, Dobbins. The talk about Jerry Jeudy is valid. Unfortunately, with everybody getting love there, it's going to be a little hard unless he starts to just take all of it. And I don't see that happening. It's not going to work for them if they want to continue to win. They've got to be able to spread that ball. Man. Spencer Rattler got in the game, bro.
Yeah.
2 for 4 for 23 yards. Let's see his rush. No rushing for him. No rushing for him. Jalen Hurts, 17 of 24, 415 yards. This is, what did we, Tua had over 400. This guy has over 400. I mean, this is out of control, man.
It's like video game football.
3 TDs, 1 pick. He rushes for 9 rushes for 70 yards and a TD. Trey Sermon, 7 carries, 76 yards, 2 TDs. It's like, they had a field day here, 55-16 over Texas Tech. I think the story is we talk about the Oklahoma, Big 12 defense and Oklahoma's defense, and Texas Tech did lose Kingsbury, but what we know of Texas Tech and what let me take a quick peek.
Generally speaking, they're going
to score points. So they only scored 16 on Oklahoma. Let me see. I don't know. Maybe their offense is a little off. I'm looking at some of the scores this year for them, and they're not as high as they were under Kingsbury. Nonetheless, 16 is pretty good, man. I mean, that's you expect more between these two teams because you don't expect the Big 12 or Oklahoma to have the type of defense. So I guess it just goes to show that's again, I'm a Clemson man. There are only 4 slots.
Yep.
I mean, right now it's, Alabama, us, Oklahoma, Ohio State.
Well, you mean if you had to pick them as of
right
today.
now?
Yeah. But legitimate.
Auburn. The only reason Alabama gets it over Auburn is because, it's Alabama and they've earned it.
Well,
but Auburn, I almost, you could even say LSU's better than.
Yeah,
but
that's why you got to play it. But I think right now, unless, which very well could happen, because again, a lot of these teams play each other. Unless chaos ensues, right now your driver's seat for the playoff is a 7-team. It's a 7-team load up right now. You got Clemson coming out of the ACC. You've got Auburn, LSU, and Alabama. Again, all three of those teams have to play each other coming out of the SEC.
Or Georgia.
And Georgia, sorry, so 8 teams. It was 8 teams. Sorry, to Georgia, because I forgot they're on a bye. So Georgia, so you got those 4 teams. Then you got Penn State, Wisconsin, and Ohio State. And there's your 8 right there. And Oklahoma.
And Oklahoma.
So, again, now, because all of these teams have to play each other, it does open up opportunities for, like, a Texas to get back in there. I think it would be a struggle, but maybe Oregon, if Auburn was to, say, run the table, that could get Oregon back into it.
Or Washington. I mean, like, keep in mind, Washington State took a loss, but it was
2. Well, they have 2.
Oh, they have 2.
So, no,
Okay.
Washington, though.
Oh,
is a one
that's
loss
right.
team.
That's right. They did take that one on.
So right now, those are the 8 teams that are in the driver's seat.
Yeah,
right
I mean,
now,
but
then
so say if it was how I have it, I mean, then. We got to take off more than likely, we're going to be 1 or Alabama's going to be 1 if it ended and we'd end up 2. And then what the world wants to see is Hurts, Oklahoma, Alabama, Hurts against his old team. I think 1-4 Alabama, Oklahoma. So we get Ohio State, or even if we get Oklahoma, I'm like, this worries me. They're good.
The fact is,
they're good.
In my mind, everybody with the exception of Clemson probably right now is probably in the most danger, just given the strength of the conference.
Well, yeah, we don't have anybody that's gonna
that can afford one loss because they all play each other. So you're talking about all highly ranked undefeated teams playing each other. Because I mean, you got Ohio State's got to play Penn State and Wisconsin. Penn State only plays Ohio State. They don't play Wisconsin this year. They get Michigan. So you got some interesting matchups right now. And I just, to me, the best looking football out there right now, the cleanest football, which doesn't necessarily mean the best teams. You probably got Oklahoma and Ohio State, and you do have to take into consideration the competition, but they are doing what they are told to do. I just, even with the Clemson, struggles against UNC, I don't believe in taking last year, but that's one of the strongest rosters out there. And then you got Alabama and LSU, Auburn. I mean, so the good part is they all got to play. So
and we
certainly dust will. Yeah, I mean, dust will settle.
That's where we're at an advantage, but where we can't lose. I mean, we're not. I mean, there is one. Did Wake take a loss this year? I think Wake's still undefeated, aren't they?
Yeah, but I'm just trying to be realistic.
But we were talking about, I think I had mentioned UVA, the last undefeated team outside of us in the conference, and I have to retract that statement because Wake is undefeated as well. They beat Boston College and jumped into the AP here at 22. But it was a struggle back and forth. But, the Surratt kid's brother, the Surratt kid on defense for North Carolina's brother, the wide receiver over at Wake, is awesome. Yep. So, but I mean, I just say that to say, like you said it, these teams have to play each other, and we don't have any teams that we're battling like that. I mean, we have to play, Wake, and we have to play Boston College. We have to play you guys, Louisville, ACC championship game, South Carolina at the end of the year. So, I see why people have a problem with it. I mean, I get it, but you also have to understand that, we can't control the other teams, and we've earned it for these past few years.
You played A&M out of conference. It's not like
we've always scheduled SEC or competition like that at a conference outside of having South Carolina, just since Dabo's been there, for that reason, to try to help.
And the simple fact really is, with the exception of, there's really only the potential for 3 undefeated teams right now, because everybody's got to play each other.
Right.
So you're talking, I mean, and Clemson obviously being one of them. Whoever comes out of the SEC could be undefeated, but you could also have a whole lot of teams with 1 loss. And then the Big Ten, you can only have 1 undefeated team because you're going to end up playing this all at the end. So, realistically, that's where we're at. So these games, again, these games matter, and we'll kind of move down to the next game to talk about how this happens, because you got Arizona State going out to Cal. Cal is they're not on your radar as a high-end team because their wins have not been, these explosive juggernaut wins, but they were quietly undefeated in the 12. They beat Washington. They ended up going out and playing Arizona State, a team that had just gone out to not Ann Arbor, East Lansing, and beat Michigan State. And they took down Cal at home. It was a lower scoring game. Pardon me, I took the score down on
24-17.
Thank you.
Arizona State.
Yep.
The quarterback kid for Cal, Chase Garbers, went 9 for 12, 117 yards, a TD, no picks, nothing spectacular. But throughout the season thus far, only because we don't get to see a lot of them, I started looking into his numbers, and he's not a bad quarterback, man. I mean, he's nothing, he's not going to necessarily blow it up, but he's more than a game manager, I guess you should say. Herm Edwards is a good coach, I guess, man, in college, because, this Arizona State team, the freshman for them, Jaden Daniels, 14 for 24, 174 yards, no TDs, no picks, but he also rushed the ball 12 times for 84 yards. And then, their running back, Eno Benjamin, went 29 carries for a Benjamin and 3 TDs. So, I mean, it's not like they needed to do a ton. Again, you said it. Cal hasn't really blown people off the map. They scored 28 against Ole Miss, 23 against North Texas, 27 against UC Davis, 20 against Washington. I guess that's the big, the one that stands out because, Washington was, and even now going in was definitely thought of to be a better squad. But, I guess my point is this, if you could – you can put 30 on this team or somewhere close, you're probably going to win.
Yeah, and I apologize. There is actually a 9th team that I didn't consider because they were idle, and that's Iowa. I believe Iowa's idle. But, again, that's a team that's going to have to play Wisconsin. I'm not sure who they play in the East, but I'm sure they get one of the juggernauts. So, again, it's kind of in a way I look at them a little bit, a better version, but a little bit like Wake. But I also am not. I would never doubt that Iowa's going to ruin somebody's season because they do it every year. They end up taking somebody big down. So,
well, I think it might be Ohio State, and if that game
they play Michigan this week. Yes, they play Michigan, and then they play.
Ohio State doesn't have Iowa this year.
Yeah, so they. I think they have Penn State actually. That might be who Penn State has.
Yeah.
But
okay.
But they play. Just to give you an idea. On this, you're talking about one of the things, and this is a challenge for a lot of conferences. The SEC's feeling it right now. I'd say that the ACC is feeling it, but it's not really true because they only have one solid team in my mind. But it's the balance in the conferences. The Big Ten, you got to give them this. They've probably got some of the best balance of any of the conferences.
Yeah. So let's run through 2 other games that are top games. I don't want to spend too much time on them because we have rambled a bit, but staying in the Big Ten. So, Northwestern travels to Wisconsin, to Camp Randall. Wisconsin has been, phenomenal this year, just absolutely demolishing their competition. They got a little bit of a game from Northwestern, but, Pat Fitzgerald, he has his guys ready to go, and he gave a little bit of a fight, and unfortunately for Northwestern, who won the Big Ten West, is it last year? I mean, they're 1-3 right now, and it doesn't look good for them.
Well, their quarterbacking situation is
my man Hunter Johnson's not getting it done, and on the flip side, Wisconsin now at number 8, continuing to look good. Quarterback Jack Cohn, 15 for 24 for a $113, no TDs and a pick. Not great, but Jonathan Taylor once again, 26 carries, 119 yards, and a TD.
That's a terrible game for Jonathan Taylor.
That's a terrible game, and that's phenomenal statisticals. 24-15 was the final score, so it really didn't take him much. But, it was, 7-3 after the first quarter, Wisconsin. Nobody scored in the second quarter. And then Wisconsin scores 14-3. And then in the fourth quarter, the Wildcats outscored Wisconsin 12-10. But, in hearing that, they put up a fight, but it was obviously they were trying to get it all at the end of the game. It was 14-3 going into the fourth quarter, so it was pretty much being handled.
I think it was all the uniforms. If you happen to catch that game, the Wisconsin uniforms.
they're ripping it all over the Twitters.
I'm all for throwbacks,
yeah.
but those ones are the ones you want to throw back.
Yeah, throw out is what you want to do with that. You want to throw it out. So, Wisconsin, they've, looking over their schedule, they demolished Michigan. I don't know how great Michigan is still, even though they had their bounce back. But they're doing Wisconsin things. I don't know. I mean, it's 24-15. Again,
I think a
I
little bit of a letdown off a big rivalry type game.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. Who am I to criticize, right?
But I think it goes back to, and this is what's going to be interesting as these teams play each other. Obviously, they're going to attack weaknesses. What's going to happen when Jonathan Taylor gets shut down? If he gets shut down, so these are going to get the subplots that are going to be created. You
talk about Iowa, and I mean they're on the same side, so they're not both coming out of there. It's either going to be Wisconsin or Iowa on the Big Ten West, but Iowa's got to go to Camp Randall. Has to go to Wisconsin. So, we'll see. We'll have to see with that. Yep. But the other game in the Big Ten, Penn State traveling to Maryland. After the first few weeks, Mike Loxley, Maryland. Wow. Their offense is going. Is this a team everybody thought, oh my gosh, they're going to go from worst to a bid for the, fighting for their side of the conference? And the past 2 weeks, it's been absolutely non-existent.
Yeah, let me say this, though. I still think the world is sleeping on Penn State. I just don't think they're a sexy team to everybody. But, I mean, with the exception of that Pitt game, I mean, they've been handling it. They went on the road, and they took it to them. And Maryland is not void of talent. Their running back, McFarland, he actually, if I remember correctly, I had it up for a second. I took it down, but he had a good game. The problem they have is, it's Josh Jackson.
McFarland didn't have a great game. He went 9 carries for 24 yards, no TDs. He had 3 receptions for 7 yards. So they shut him down.
They did shut him down.
But
okay.
You're not wrong. He's a good back. But, 59-0 was the final score. Here we go again. Number 14, Sean Clifford, the quarterback for Penn State, 26-31, 398 yards, 400 yards, man. He got 400 yards, 398 yards, round up. 3 TDs, 1 pick. I mean, holy Christmas.
Yep.
400 yards, 400 yards, 400 yards. You're right.
And that is not indicative of a Penn State.
I got to be honest.
Offense.
I think that the Penn State-Ohio State matchup is going to be. When is that? Here we go.
It's later in the year. They don't play until November.
They play November 23rd. It's at the Horseshoe. So, if these two teams keep doing what they're doing, man, that is going to be an awesome game.
Yep.
An awesome game.
Yeah. This is. I'm struggling a little bit with them still being ranked outside the top 10. I don't know if the new rankings came out. I still think they are. They're 11 or 12.
They're 12.
12. So I don't see it right now. Penn State's outside of the top 10. One, they certainly look better than Florida to me. So there's just one team I would put behind them. But they look good, and I gotta say, I think this is a team everybody that sleeps on them is going to suffer some heavy consequences. All right, let's get down to the last 2 games. And these are the 2 games against ranked opponents. This one has less playoff implications, but still an interesting game. USC traveled out to Washington. In this game, I guess it's kind of been the tale of game 2 of the freshman USC quarterback has just tanked. As you saw that Slovis was hurt in his second game, but also was having a rough go. Fink came in and played better, and then
Finkelstein.
Now Fink has come in and
it's only that first game when they come in in help that they're good, buddy. Yeah. It's only maybe it's just like, oh my God, I didn't expect it. They don't have any nerves. Maybe there's just like they're just kind of like thrown out there. But when they have to think about it a while.
Yep.
In preparation, all of a sudden it's.
Yeah, they ran for 212 yards, so they did all right on the ground, but the passing game was a struggle, and then having 3 turnovers will kill you. And USC gets taken out 28-14. again, Washington is on the outside looking in, but again, it's a team that, assuming Cal can continue to win well, and if they can win out, they have a shot at getting in, because you got to just see how. I mean, there's going to be a lot of one-loss teams, so you just got to see how everybody plays it out. But certainly the strength of the conference isn't there, so that's not a helpful thing for them. So it's just, you want to see this game. I mean, you got Eason was okay.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen him been blowing up the past few weeks, and we said he definitely still has the potential to be talked about in the Heisman, but this brings it down to earth a little bit.
Yeah, 16 to 26 for 180.
Yeah, no
didn't
touchdowns,
have any
no picks,
but didn't have any touchdowns either. So they kind of got it done on the ground.
But he had 3 carries for 0 yards, and I think, like when we were talking about the recap a couple weeks ago, he had like 5 carries for negative 22 yards. And I said, stick to throwing the ball, young man.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm sure there's scrambles. It's him under duress. But, yeah, you need to just hand the ball off or throw it. Yeah, the number 26 running back for Washington, Salvon Ahmed, went 17 for $153 and a TD. So that's pretty good.
Yep.
I mean, that's pretty good. These guys are – it just amazes me sometimes, whether it's the yardage or, Cam Akers for you guys who gets 30 carries a game. Like, how in the world the wheels don't come off?
Yeah. Yeah. And then, and not to put too much on this game, I think we can move on to the UVA Notre Dame game, which was UVA was undefeated. Notre Dame coming off a loss last week to Georgia,
but definitely the arrow pointing up.
Yeah,
even though they lost.
They played much better than we thought. Yeah, definitely. They gave Georgia a run for their money in Georgia. So UVA coming off a win against Florida State, where Florida State had a shot to take them down, and UVA was able to come back. In this game, Perkins was forced to do a lot through the air. His running statistics, he ran 16 times for negative 29 yards. So Notre Dame was all over him. They were actually, truthfully, Notre Dame, their rush defense really came to play.
Yeah, they did. That one guy, the D tackle guy, who I think had the forced fumble and then scoop score.
Yep.
That
was just
was it Gilman? Oh no, I don't know. It was one of their D tackles. He can't be number 11. Okwara. Yeah, dude. Like, I mean, they definitely are. Their defense is, they did a good job. We've racked on Perkins' accuracy and him not being able to throw the ball, and the reality, he had a, you're right. They shut down the run. He's a runner, and they shut him down. But he was able to get some things done with his arm. He threw 2 picks, but he threw the ball 43 times, 30 completions for 334 yards, couple TDs.
Yeah, playing a lot of catch up though in that game, because you got to give it to Notre Dame's defense. I mean, they had 9 sacks in the game, right? I think it was 9. Yeah, 9 sacks. They had 11 tackles for loss.
Yeah.
So you're talking about 20 negative plays out of, the 78 that they ran.
Yeah, you can't play behind the sticks like that, especially early in downs. I mean, again, Clemson guy, that's what our defense, that's the whole mantra, is get people behind the sticks right on first down. And second down, keep them still deep. If you don't tackle them for a loss again, make it 3rd and long, and then pin your ears back and get after them. I mean, it was 14-7 first quarter, and then, Virginia busts out and scores 10 points and leads at the half 17-14. And Notre Dame made their adjustments, comes out in third quarter, scores 14 points, blanks Virginia, and then in the fourth quarter, scores a touchdown to Virginia's 3. So, final score 35-20 Notre Dame, and again, the arrow is pointing up. The loss to Georgia, I still think is, unless because of what you said, a lot of these teams have to play each other, so there'll be one-loss teams. But that was their shot. That was their shot.
I'm a little bothered by them being ahead of Penn State, too. I would add them to the list of people that shouldn't be ahead of Penn State.
That for sure. I think they could take them apart. But, I mean, there is an outside shot, I guess, if they handle their business, which is
their schedule's not easy this year, so they could get some strength back.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, again, they can't lose again, obviously, and you're going to have a problem if it boils down to a Georgia with one loss, potentially taking a 4th slot who beat them, then they're gone.
Well, I will tell you right now, of those 8 teams, or excuse me, it was 8 teams? Yeah, 8 teams that we talked about right now that have the front. I will tell you right now, there's somebody we are not talking about in those 8 that will be in the playoff.
Could it be SMU? They are 5-0.
I'm gonna go with no, but I will say, that's why you talk about these games. That's why you watch them, is because this is where, when all these teams start hitting on each other, who unfolds and then who's able to rise up kind of quietly. That's why I tell you, there's just not a lot of respect for Penn State, and that's the type of team that's going to get their games later in the year. They're going to play some marquee games where they can do a little bit of damage in the polls. They're not a real big I guess, draw right now to the idea of who's in the playoff, and that's why I like watching it. I think it's going to be interesting. And have that play out. But that's kind of what we've seen all throughout this week. Again, I've said it. I still believe it. Weeks 1 through 4 or 0 through 4 are where you figure out who you are as a team, and then the next 4 weeks are about proving that's who you are, and then the last 4 are going to be who's the best.
Yep. Now, keep in mind, there is 9 weeks left. It's a 14-week season because of week 0. A lot of teams actually have 2 buys, but whatever. It is. It's getting to crunch time. You better put up or shut up right now, because there's not a lot of room for error, and that's why we love it. Every week matters. So that is, I think we're at about almost close to an hour and a half. You just can't, we try, folks, but we just have too much juicy content to give you. So, listen in pieces, man. It's worth it. If you're here in Atlanta or in any metro city, you're sitting in traffic at least an hour and a half during the day, whether it be to, from, or both ways. So don't give me that crap. Call me, 678-618-5300. We'll have the vent line, so you can vent. We love you. Hugs and kisses. Talk to you soon.